right. So, do we have all the people here that need to be here? It looks like it. Okay, fair enough. I'd like to call this special council meeting to order. Please note that the council chambers are open to the public, and we have some public with us here. Meetings continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on the agenda, please submit them by email to mail@ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this special council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Our first item of business is to adopt the agenda. Just before I get into that, the whole purpose of this special meeting is for council and the members of the public who are here with us to get an education on various pavement treatments and alternative preservation methods and that type of thing. So I think it's going to be a very interesting session for all of us. So could I have a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda, please? So moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Renault. That the special meeting of council agenda dated March 28th, 2025 be adopted as amended. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with regards to today's agenda? And if so, what is the general nature thereof? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on then to delegations. And as I said, this is with regards to various paving and preservation techniques. We're very happy to have representatives from Miller Paving joining us today. And I'm not sure who exactly is going to be doing the presentation, so I'll turn the virtual podium over to you and I'll allow you to introduce yourselves.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the whole township for having us in here to give this presentation. Thank you, Royal, for helping us set this up. To give you introductions, we've got a team with us. Myself and Ola will be presenting. My name is Matt Nygam. I'm the Colden Place Recycling Operations Manager.
Ola Day. I'm the engineer for the group and I work on technical issues.
So I'd also like to introduce the rest of our team that we've brought in to sit in. I'll start with Orly, and if you guys just go down and let us know what you do at Miller, and maybe how many years you've been with us.
Yeah, I've been with Miller for a long, too long, quite a while, and been mostly involved in the recycling part the last number of years. It seems to be a good product. They're doing it on 400 series highways. They're doing it on smaller roads, and it's really performing well. So it's quite an operation and well worth the money. In my thoughts, every time I go to a different area, I consider that my tax dollars are being spent there as well. So always try to recommend the best for the situation for the road that you guys have. So, Peter.
I'm next. I'm not going to bother that long.
No, okay.
I'm Peter Miskey from Miller. I've been in microsurface since it started in, I think it was 98. We started there. So, and I've been doing that ever since. But before that, I've been into a little bit of everything, like asphalts and everything else. So, and I've been with them about 30 years, I think.
Here next. Gary Nolan, customer service rep, Eastern Ontario. I've been with Miller for 30 years.
Chantal Marsalis. I'm coming up to 10 years with Miller's this year, and I'm an operations supervisor for our Braeside location. So we work on surface treatment, tack coat, granular ceilings, and pulverizing in that area.
Perfect. Yeah, so they're the real experts. We're just here to do the presentation.
So is there going to be a test at the end of all of this?
Of course. Take your notes. So we're going to start actually with the video first. So when we say we're part of Miller Paving and the Miller Group, it's a pretty big company. We're from a specific group called the Ontario Pavement Products Group. And I'd love to share a video about who we are at Miller first.
The Ontario Pavement Products Group, a division of Miller Paving Limited, a Colas company, has been proudly serving Ontario for over 100 years, providing a range of services that help you maintain your roadways. We offer technical services to help you develop your pavement management plans that include pavement evaluations and designs, laboratory testing, and assist with specifications to help you choose the right treatment for the right road at the right time. We're committed to environmentally responsible solutions to help you reduce your carbon footprint. Our services include controlling dust using calcium chloride application, reducing gravel maintenance, all supplied from our liquid terminal located in Oshawa, Ontario. Our chlorides can be further utilized in full depth reclamation and base stabilization. Chlorides help increase bearing capacity and reduce the need for virgin materials. Hold-in-place recycling and full central plant recycling offers 100% reuse of existing materials, including asphalt buildings. Extend the life of your road network by utilizing various pavement preservation techniques, which are cost-effective and proven to reduce construction time and user delays. By incorporating geotextile and fog seals into your surface treatment, you can enhance performance. Microsurfacing will correct your crossfall, fill ruts, and address friction concerns, enhancing safety. Preserve your existing roads with slurry seal. The Ontario Pavement Products Group offers a range of services, including milling, liquid transportation, tack coating, granular sealing, and winter maintenance, including sand, salt, de-icing liquids, and snow removal. We believe in challenging status quo by continuously improving time-tested methods, utilizing innovative, environmentally responsible technologies, and always bringing safety first. The Ontario Pavement Products Group is committed to building great every day.
So yeah, that's us, Ontario Pavement Products at Miller, and products and services, and we're going to get into a few of them today. Being a part of Miller, we're actually part of a much bigger family since the Colas Canada acquisition. You can see our different sister companies there on the bottom. This includes McAsphalt, who is our asphalt, cement, and emulsion supplier. And truly at Colas, because of our network of companies and we're from coast to coast to coast, we truly believe that we help connect Canada. So the conversations we're going to be having today, there's going to be an overarching theme, and it's really about environment and it's about sustainability. So when we talk about sustainability, there's the financial component, again, the environmental component, and the social component. Believe it or not, once you're looking out for the environment and actually looking at, hey, I've got an asset here that I have to maintain for 30, 50, 100 years, how do I spend the least amount of carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, to construct it, to maintain it, and then eventually replace it? By having the right, I guess, mentality from the start, you're actually going to save the taxpayers in the long run as well. It's really about how do you incorporate preservation, and when there is a time to, rehabilitate, how do you start recycling, which is what we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of in this presentation. Once you have this mentality, you really do contribute towards a circular economy. You eliminate waste, you eliminate time and costs associated with, traditional, conventional methods of what do we always do. So let's take a look at this pavement condition curve here first. Hopefully you've seen it before. Hopefully Royal has brought your attention to it. But over the course of time, this is true for any asset. We're talking about roads today, but you start in a very good condition when it's first constructed. And over the course of time, the condition of that road deteriorates. In pavement language, we say PCI, Pavement Condition Index. It's like a scorecard. If you're above 70%, you've got a B. The road's in decent condition. You can maybe preserve it. Once you start getting to C and a D, there's quite a bit of potholing. There's some cracking. You've got some issues here, some safety concerns. So now maybe you need to spend some more funding to actually bring the ride quality up to make it safer for your traveling public. But traditionally what we do is we wait for this trigger point. We wait till it gets really bad and we can allocate some funding before we decide to address the problem. But we live in frost country. As soon as you get a crack in your road and you're letting water get into your pavement, water and pavement do not get along, and then you exponentially make the problem worse. And so you're exponentially the costs more as well. So when you use this traditional method, you're spending a lot more. You've got the road shut down for a lot longer, causing more of an inconvenience to your traveling public, and then your costs are also increasing. Excess soil management is now regulation, which makes it more difficult to dump, dig and dump. So we have to maintain our assets better, and part of that conversation is how do we preserve them? So while it's still in relatively good condition, before the cracks are on the road, let's do a micro surfacing or a slurry seal, depending on the traffic volumes. Or we put a chip seal on it, and the following year we can put a micro or slurry on it, which you're gonna learn about later. How are we, again, preserving the asset, which starts with building it right to begin with? And I understand that's a funding question as well. If you have limited money to work with, it's kind of difficult, right? You know what the right solutions are, but it's your cash strapped. So how do you go about it? By preserving your overall costs are lowering, you're lowering the carbon footprint, and again, that user delay. For all the work that we're going to be talking about today, there isn't a major shutdown of the road. We detour traffic as we're doing the work, and at the end of the day, we get off the road and the public gets to continue traveling on it, which is an added benefit. Recycling is another thing we're going to close out our presentation with, and here you're now reusing and recycling the materials. Again, lowering the cost versus having to reconstruct the whole structure to begin with. And again, how do you make sure your pavement condition, you can bring it back up to a level where it's safe for your traveling public. You can talk to municipalities who will have a really good PCI in their network, so your pavement condition index. I guess I'll turn to Royal now to see if in the township, obviously there's a regulation that the MTO has now been putting out for asset management requirements. And as part of that, municipalities have to go out and figure out what's the condition of all my different assets. What is my 5-year plan? What is my 10-year plan? So for the township here, when it comes to your roads, do you have an idea of where is your average PCI? Did you guys have to hire a consultant? Are you guys looking at things in-house for your roads?
The consultants hired, the road team study was completed in 2022, and that information was migrated into the asset management plan. And we've got a third of the roads that are in a low PCI.
Okay. Got it. And I'll get into more of the questions. So when you talk to these municipalities, they'll tell you there's 4 secrets to our success to have a PCI in our network in the 70s, which is considered to be healthy. One is having a good toolbox, knowing what's available to you, right? What are the different products in markets? What is my neighbor doing that I can learn off of? Secondly is studying and understanding your network. So periodically, again, using consultants or maybe as a summer student, but going out there and seeing, what are the conditions? How are they deteriorating? How can I best allocate funding when, let's say, there is something else that's happening, like a new subdivision is coming up, or there is a bridge rehab coming up. And so as part of that, I've got to do some road work as well. And lastly, it's what you're doing here with us today, which is industry engagement, right? Giving industry the opportunity to come and speak to you and share our information, and that we can learn from each other and see how we can progress towards better road management. By doing all of these, I promise you, you will know when to put the right treatment on the right road at the right time. Any of these 3 things are not in line, you're not going to get the performance that you're expecting. So I would love to say what I'm going to do today is going to last 7 to 10 years, but Peter Miskey will tell you, if you put micro on a road that's already pretty cracked, I don't know if I can give you 7 years. Okay? You're going to have to go do some crack sealing first, make sure those cracks are covered up, and even then we might give you 3 to 5 years. Really depends on the condition of the road. Again, time of year. We typically work between May and maybe September. Once it's cooler, once your overnights are in the zeros, you shouldn't be using these technologies just because they take longer to cure, which is something you're going to learn about later in the presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Ola now, who's going to be talking about different pavement preservation techniques, but they're not just for preserving. In certain municipalities, like yourselves, where we consider them lower volume roads, so they see less traffic, there's less truck traffic. This is actually how you guys build your roads. You guys use chip seal to build your roads. So Royal, can I ask you, of your road network, how much of it is still gravel versus a hard top?
Top of my head, I think we have 50-50.
Oh, it is 50-50, interesting. And of your hard top roads, would you say mostly chip seal or surface treatment or hot mix asphalt?
Mostly asphalt.
Mostly asphalt. Very interesting. Okay. And have you guys had chip seal programs in the township in the past?
They're starting to.
They're starting to. Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ola, it's yours.
So, why pavement preservation? Councillor Smith, can I ask you a question? Sure. Do you have a car?
Yeah.
Do you drive yourself?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you change your oil periodically? I
Yes.
assume you go service your car periodically.
Yeah.
How often do you do that?
As scheduled,
A schedule? Okay. Why do you do it?
preserve the engine of the vehicle.
So what would be the cost to you if you didn't do that compared to you doing that?
Probably an engine cost.
Excellent. So what I'm getting at is basically with our assets, with our roads, like your car, the way you manage it, the way you service it periodically to make sure that it lasts longer and you don't have to spend that engine money is essentially how we should manage our roads, right? We want to approach it in a way that we are periodically preserving the road so that it can last longer because we know that at the end of the day, if we wait until it goes bad, the cost is going to be really high, right? And the impact it has on the taxpayer is really high. So that is the whole message of what I'm talking about here. I'm gonna start with to show you a picture here of someone that has done something like that. So on the left side, no pavement preservation throughout the life of the road. On the right side, pavement preservation was done. The road was originally constructed in 2004, and there was a mill and overlay in 2004 rather. There was a crack sealing and micro on the right in 2010. On the left, nothing was done, and this is what it looks like 8 years after the fact. No preservation on the left, so that is Councillor Smith not touching his engine on the left, and then on the right, him having done his service as scheduled. So there's no talking about any of these things without talking about emotion. Essentially, what an emotion is a way to make asphalt cement workable at room temperature. Regular asphalt cement is very viscous at room temperature. For you to be able to work it in hot mix, it has to be at 150 degrees to 170 degrees Celsius. But with an emulsion, which is essentially the asphalt cement made into tiny droplets that are suspended in water, the water allows it to flow at room temperature. The production process is basically you have your asphalt cement, the water that carries it, and an emulsifier that surrounds the asphalt droplet and keeps it suspended in the water without them coming back together. And that allows it to be able to be transported at room temperature, and the application process, when it is used, it has a brownish color, and the brown color is just from the fact that there's still water in the system. When the water leaves, then it goes back to your regular color of asphalt cement, which is black, and which is what gives our road the black color. So first of all, I'm going to talk about chip seals. Surface treatment, we also call it iron chip sometimes, which has kind of a negative connotation to it, so we don't like to use that word. Since we don't use tire anymore, we use emulsions. Emulsions are very environmental friendly. It's, like I said, water and asphalt cement mixed together. Your chip seals are essentially a sprayed application of emulsion followed by the stone. It can be done at multiple applications and with various different techniques as well. You can add a slurry seal on top to give it a better riding surface, and that makes it a cape seal. For roads where we have cracking already, and we don't want that crack to reflect through, we can use a geotextile to suppress the crack energy reflection from the base. And they generally use on low volume roads, which would be applicable for your processes here. Fog seal. So something that tends to happen is with chip seal, you can get a lot of dust or stone kick out from the traffic going over it. You know, the public is going over it at a high speed. With new construction, the stone can fly out of it. So with a fog seal, we tend to keep the stone in the system, right? The stone doesn't fly out, you don't have traffic issues. And then you get it also serves as a dust suppressant. So that means the traffic, the public will not be subjected to the dust that comes out of that. Then we have the slurry system. This is a mixture of your stone, a little bit of additives, and asphalt emulsion. Surface treatment is sprayed application followed by stone. This is a mixture of all of them together. And it's usually applied in one layer. It's very, very thin, around 5 millimeters. And it's applied on low traffic volume roads. And it is used on roads that are in good condition. If it's fair and good condition, then it's going to be like Mark was talking about before. If you have cracks, then that might affect the life that you get out of it. Right? Then followed by that, I'm going to talk about the microsurfacing. It is very, very similar process. The only difference here is that we use premium aggregates. So the stone is more polish resistant. So it's going to resist abrasion from traffic, and it can be used on high traffic roads. So we have applications on different Highway 401 jobs. And this one can be applied as a single or a double application, and can also be used for some profile correction and rock filling as well. So this table I have here just shows you your typical life that you can expect depending on the application that these techniques are used for. So if you use fog seal on a good condition road, PCI of around 80, you can expect it for your road to last 3 to 5 more years. Chip seal 7 to 10 years, that kind of stuff. And then as the quality of the road you're using goes down, then the life that you get out of it goes down. Okay, this is a video that's going to show you this.
At Miller, we pride ourselves on our vision, mission, and values, and our ability to leverage what we've learned to innovate and build greatness for the future. With over 100 years of experience in road construction and maintenance, we've seen it all, done it all, and are the trendsetters for safe, quality, sustainable construction and maintenance practices. Seal coats, also known as surface treatments, provide effective pavement preservation to a variety of roadways. Alternate applications of asphalt emulsion and cover aggregate are placed to produce durable, flexible, and cost-effective surfaces. A reinforced seal coat, referred to as a stress-absorbing membrane interlayer or SAMI, is recommended over cracked pavements and or poor base condition, which are too costly to repair or remove. This process is performed simply by incorporating a non-woven geotextile paving fabric saturated in binder immediately before the chip seal process. This will help extend the life of subsequent overlays by reducing the effects of reflected cracking from below. Additional benefits include waterproofing the sub-base layers, keeping them dry from water infiltration, thus maximizing their load-bearing capacity. These treatments are traffic ready shortly after placement, which help reduce construction times and future delays. For extended life and higher traffic volumes, the process is repeated, creating a double seal. A fog seal can be applied to all these treatments to help reduce stone loss and dust suppression. For more information on seal coats and other pavement preservation techniques, visit www.millergroup.ca or www.roadresource.org.
So here I just have the specifications that we have to follow for surface treatments. There are 6 different classes of surface treatment depending on the class, the application that I'm going to use them for. The main difference here is you have your chip seals, which are all of the classes except class 2, and then graded seal. So chip seal is just the bigger stones, and it's just one stone size, uniformly graded material. The graded seal is more of a mixture of fine material and the coarse material mixed together, and they can be used on low volume roads. It's much cheaper, and it's very, very durable as well. These are the different emulsions that we use that as well. Depending on the type of stone that we're using, that would govern what kind of emulsion that we're going to use. So for the material that has a lot of sand and dust in it, then we need a slow setting emulsion. So the slow setting will give it time to move around within the system, and for the material, for the stone to embed itself in the emulsion. For chip seal, the stones are uniformly sized and they are cleaner, so that means we can use a more rapid setting emulsion. So some best practices when it comes to surface treatments. The main thing to note is surface treatment does not support, it doesn't carry any load. It's not there to provide structural bearing capacity for your boat. Right? So that comes from the base. All of that is just to provide a good riding surface for the public to go over. So that means that whenever we want to construct a road like this, we have to make sure that the base has to be prepared properly to handle the traffic that is going to be there. And then also, one of the things that we can do to prepare the base is we can pulverize whatever existing road is there and add some granular material to provide some profile correction as well. And we can also, like I said before, we can also apply the photo on top of the road after we've done our surface treatment.
Well, if I can at this stage, just ask, as part of your asset management plan, then, 50% of your roads are gravel road. Is there a plan to start converting them into surface treatment chip seal roads? No.
Well, there's no official plan. There's been that type of discussion.
Right.
But the issue is that so much of our inventory is at a stage where it needs attention. We're trying to balance the appearance to the public of, well, wait a minute, you just paid, but you did a full reconstruction on this road 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Right.
And now you're going and paying attention to that, but I'm living on this road that hasn't seen anything for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's that worst first
Of course.
mentality, and we've not got past our hardtop roads to even get into, can we ultimately save money by doing a chip seal? So that's a really quick sort of thumbnail sketch of where we're at.
Great picture, then you also pointed on public opinion and perception. It is something you guys need to navigate as well. Okay.
So, question, if, say you have a road in mind that you might want to, do one of these procedures on, do you suggest doing core samples to figure out the base, or, what's the best method to decide what the base is?
It's always good to do any kind of what they call geotech. So doing some sort of, boreholes or having some sort of information about what is the quality of the gravel there. Once you hit your native soil, is it clay? Is it frost susceptible? Where's the water table? But usually that's with how much traffic you're going to put on. So on these lower volume roads, it's more of a rule of thumb. You have how much gravel you need. You need about usually half a meter of gravel. It's considered a sufficient base, and it shouldn't be a dirty material. So when we say dirty, there's silky, clay, fine materials in your gravel. They're going to want to soak up water. They're going to want to heat. So that's considered a bad solution. But I would say always geotech is great. There's obviously a cost element to it. So unless you're truly upgrading a road because hey, I'm putting garbage trucks on it, I'm putting a school bus on it, they're the ones who are really beating your roads. A pickup truck, light duty cars, they're not the ones doing damage to your roads.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, a lot of your charts show on poor condition roads 1 to 2 years, no matter what you do put on it.
Yeah.
So, we'd probably want to avoid that.
For sure, yeah. It's more of a holding strategy. So let's say you don't have the money right now, but you need to put something on it. An asphalt solution is 3 to 4 times the cost of a preservation. So it's really about that. So instead of padding it or scratch coating it with asphalt to improve the ride, till I will spend money to replace that culvert, I'm going to put a micro on it to at least improve it, do some pothole filling. That way, it's again, people aren't losing the rim driving through it, and you spent a quarter of the price to bring up the PCI temporarily for that road. Yeah, please.
This road right out in front here, we didn't have the money to do all 1 year. So we put it into 2 years. It's asphalt. It's a fine road. I think you probably got in on it today. Were we right in doing that, or did we make a mistake?
I will take a drive on my way out, and then I will call Royal, but,
Well, it was just finished paving last year, so I think you're going to find this perfect road.
yeah, no, it should be really good.
Yeah.
And so again, that would be a great candidate within, year 3 to year 5. Let's put a slurry seal on it, just to ensure that there's gonna be no cracking issues that come on this road. But to your point, yeah, after we spent some funding there,
We did the
probably
right
should
thing.
address- I want to say yes, you guys made good decisions.
Well,
in your
and
township.
I think what Councilor Brayton is getting at is that, this is a long enough road, but we've got longer ones, and so sometimes because of budget, we'll break it up into, section 1, section 2, section 3.
Yep.
So, is that a viable technique? Are there concerns around that joint? Versus should we just be putting up with the condition that it gets into, and then on the third year, doing it all as one great big project, right? Those are
I
decision
think
points as well.
In terms of optimizing your network, right, don't wait to do the whole road just because you're worried about the construction joint. Yes, the construction joint is a plain weakness, right? Very likely because it's usually a cold constructed joint. If it's heat bonded, you should usually tack the joint as well. Do everything possible to prevent that crack to wind open, but it's something to expect. It's part of it. But we're talking about crack sealing to solve that problem versus pushing a problem, changed it to now you need 3 lifts of asphalt, not 2. Now you need to dig 750 mil, not half a mil, right? So it's kind of that delaying things. And again, cross country and water getting into your pavements only gets worse year after year. Like your PCIs are never stagnant, right? They will year over year, they drop until you bring them back up. So, yeah. Thank you guys.
Just real quick,
Thank
I just try to clarify maybe what Councilor Brayton and the mayor are alluding to. You have 30 kilometers of asphalt road that need to be repaired, have a PCI of 30 or less. You budget to do 3 kilometers.
Yeah.
Do you do 3 kilometers a year, and then that 30 becomes 45, and then 50, and then you've got your PCI went down from 30 to 5. Like at what point do you say we should be doing these versus we're just going to wait until everything flows apart completely and then reconstruct it all, but we don't need to do it all. So that's the strategy.
No, that's a good point. Do you, from road resource, the calculator, you have the information to share on? There's a way to look at your equivalent life. So looking at your network and your lane miles or lane kilometers, and again, yeah, how best to make use of your budget to solve that problem. So if maybe you and I can connect after Royal and you can give me some and I can do some analysis for you to let you know. It's hard to give you an answer right here without knowing what your overall network looks like. But generally speaking, putting all your money on asphalt and restoring it back to a higher PCI versus just having a little bit of funding to continue preserving overall long term over the course of the next 10, 20 years, you'll improve your PCI at a better rate than constantly hitting the worst stuff first. So I hope that kind of got at it.
Yeah, what mine's trying to talk about is this process that it essentially looks like how many kilometers you have in the network, everything combined, how many lane kilometers you have, and then they split it down to lane kilometer years. So the assumption is that if you have 1,000 kilometers in your entire network, that means if you don't fix 1,000 kilometers, so what I'm going to say is 1 year, you lose 1 year of life from that road. So if your road is supposed to last 20 years, that's year 2, you lost 1 year, so it's now 19 years, right? So every year you have to return a quantity of years to your entire network that is equivalent to or more than what you would lose per year. And the technique is a way to make sure that it's not, you don't have to repair 1,000 kilometers, but it's a, if you can return 25 years to one kilometer of road, that's 25 lane kilometer years extra. It's all technical, but the idea is that if you use that approach, then you can always get to a better PCI for your time. Okay. So here I just have some pictures showing different types of equipment. Like I said before, last year, the graded seal that has a fine sand material in it. It has this kind of texture with it because of the gradation of the material you're using. So you have your coarse aggregate, the stones, and then there is a lot of sand in between as well. And then this is a type of a gradation that is a chip seal. You can see that there is no sand there, it's just all big stone.
On this picture, we wanted to add as typically when we do these chip seal operation and there isn't a fog seal, there's a tendency for us to do some extra aggregate just because we know once we open up to traffic, we're gonna get some movement, we're gonna get some whip off, and then you're gonna have issues with, it looks like, all the stone is gone. So that's why it looks a little bit heavy. In the next picture, Ola will show you is a chip seal, with the fog right about to happen. So it'll be more of a very tight texture. There's not gonna be excessive amount of aggregate. And then Ola, if you go one more, this is just after we put a fog on. So it's again, it's making sure that chip is retained, it prevents flying chips, it helps with dust, and it gives the road a little bit more of a blacker appearance as well.
Yeah, so if you go back to three slides, please. Okay, so basically what they're explaining is that this is what used to be or is still called float. And the reason why people don't like or have a negative connotation with the chip seals is because the float and picks up and then get damaged windshields and paint chips in. So they've changed the technology, so now they're doing the fog seals to stop that from happening and it uses less material and better for everyone.
Exactly.
Thank you.
In your municipality, roads are left to deteriorate until the only option is expensive removal or reconstruction. To avoid this, the most economical solution is microsurfacing. This pavement preservation technique is one of the best ways to keep roads in good condition, extending their life, and making the most of hard-earned soils. Microsurfacing is a protective resurfacing method that uses a mixture of asphalt emulsion, high-quality crushed aggregate, water, and cement. Applied by specialized equipment, thin layer is 5 to 10 millimeters thick. It dries quickly and opens to traffic in less than an hour. The resulting surface has good traction, a smoother ride, and looks good. Microsurfacing can be applied to heavy traffic roads and highways that are still in fair to good condition as a means of preventative maintenance. By sealing minor cracks and other irregularities, it protects pavement from moisture penetration, oxidation, corrects wheel rutting, and provides good skid resistance. That means your roads are safer, smoother to drive on, and last longer.
So now I'm just going to talk about microsurfacing and floor seal. They are very similar kind of products. The main difference here is that one is very useful in high traffic applications, the other one not so much. The microsurfacing is uses an emulsion that is positively charged, and there is polymer in the emulsion as well, which makes it a little bit more durable. And it also means that we can open into traffic at a much faster than the other one. So microsurfacing, we can open the traffic within an hour. Slurry seal is 4 hours of wait before we open the traffic. And another benefit of microsurfacing is that it can be used to provide some profile correction to your roads. So where you have some rotting or you have a little bit of some crossroad issues, then you can just manage that a little bit. And we can repair rods up to 1 inch deep with the use of a rod box. And the main what you get out of these two applications is that what it does is it covers your road and ensures that it's not subjected to the rays of the sun, the harming rays of the sun that makes it brittle and causes it to crack. So if you have a relatively new road that is in good condition, this is a way to keep it at a good condition for a much longer time. Okay, so here I just have, similar to the surface treatment, there are gradations on how big the stones that we use in these applications are. And there are 3 types of gradation for slurry seal and also 3 types for microsurfacing. For the slurry seal, we tend to use type 2. It's a finer material. That means you have a much smoother ride surface. The 2 of them restore friction to the road, but depending on the size of the stone you're using, the friction you get can be high. So for areas where, say it's a bike lane, or say it's in a subdivision, and then people want to be able to ride their bikes or roller skate on the road, then the small aggregate is better for that kind of application. So There are key considerations to have for these processes. One of them is surface preparation before we start the process. So we have to make sure that the road is properly swept and clean. If you have dust on your road before you apply them, what would happen is that the new process is going to bond to the dust and not to the underlying road and will just peel up. So we make sure that we clean, we sweep where we need to, and where there you have more stuff to the road, and we use a power wash to get that up. And crack sealing is very important. Like I said, these techniques are there to preserve your road. So your road has to be in good condition. But if you have cracks, they have to be sealed before applying these techniques, or the crack will be through the system. And then there's also night work. The advantage of microsurfacing is that we can do the work at night. So, because the way the water uses the system is chemically engineered, rather than slurry system, which it requires the environment, humidity has to be low, you have to have high temperature for the water to be able to evaporate out of the motion. And then for manholes, tight basins, expansion joints for bridges as well, just make sure those zones are covered so that you don't have stone and emulsion stuck in them. And then high traffic intersections as well. So one thing that is very, very critical is the areas of your road where you have the highest stresses on the road are usually at intersections where cars, trucks are turning, and that applies a lot of stress on the road. So in those areas, we tend to put some floats just to help to not damage the material when it's still fresh to be. Right. Okay, so granular sealing. This is a product that we use to prevent erosion in areas where we have high slope. We have guardrails where you tend to see water dripping out, and just the material around that area will just erode because of water passing through. So what this does is it keeps the material around that area in a creative hold. It's just a sprayed application of an emulsion of the cut back bitumen, and it just holds it there and provides some waterproofing, so that rather than the water eroding the material in that area, it just goes over it with flavor. There are many different types. There's the acid density primer, which they call back bitumen, is the most commonly used one. And we also have the emulsified primer. For the type 2 there, we have an environmentally friendly one. The main thing is the cut-back bitumen has what we call VOCs, volatile organic compounds. They are very bad in the environment. But with the EnviroFrame, it's an emulsion, and that doesn't. The emulsion, like I said before, is just a water system for carrying the ashes. But the cut-back is like kerosene, naphtha to reduce the viscosity of the asphalt cement. Okay, so that's everything when it comes to pavement preservation that we have. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, earlier in the sort of setup for some of these details, there was mention of some of these techniques using the geofabric.
Yes.
So, but I didn't hear you refer to geofabric in any of these particular application methods. So, are we going to see the geotech fabrics perhaps play a role in other techniques? And they're not used in these techniques, or they are?
No, they are. So they use for surface treatment. Okay. So you would apply the video I had showed that you would apply the geofabric. It's saturated in binder, right, and then you put a stone on top of that. Okay. So what that does is, if you have cracks underneath and the crack energy wants to propagate up, that will suppress the crack energy from going all the way through and reduce the cracks that you see on top of that.
Okay, so let's dig into crack sealing a little bit. So if we've got a road that has a fair amount of cracking, and maybe I'm just thinking of the wrong thing when I think of crack seal, but I think of that as a very labor-intensive process where you go and you route out a consistent slot and you fill it with the rubberized material and that type of thing. So that seems like an awful lot of effort and therefore a fair amount of expense to prepare a road. Are there other techniques that may be less effective in terms of length of time, but far more efficient in terms of the upfront application as a compromise? Is there a way of providing some structure to the cracks without that labor intensive process, using a geofabric and putting some kind of a sealing treatment on top of that. Is that a viable alternative?
That is essentially what the SAMI is there for, to provide that protection so that, well, you don't have to do all of that labor intensive process.
Okay.
But that is specifically for surface treatment. You don't have that for microsurfacing of the slurry. It doesn't have that application because the technique is a mixture. It's a mixture compared to the one that is paid application.
Okay.
So that's different. So for microsurfacing a slurry, you definitely still have to do the actual crack filling. But for surface treatments, we can do that.
And is it viable to put surface treatment on top of what I'll call a traditional hardtop road?
Yes. We use them on gravel roads and on hard.
Okay,
In the western provinces, like on their highways, and their Trans-Canada highways, it's a chip seal that they put. Very clean stone, rapid setting oil, so it just sets up right away. Like in New Zealand, they use different techniques where it's more hot applied. So I'd say really here in Ontario, we still try to look at it as a low volume, right, secondary road problem. And again, it is lower costs compared to the asphalt. But no, your candidates selection, there's quite a few different things. To your question about cracking, when you put this geotextile membrane, it's for preventing reflective cracking, right? So that crack doesn't want to propagate through whatever you put on top of it. Right? So it does help with that. There's other things called scrub seal. I don't know, Peter, if we ever ventured into the scrub seal side, but I know on the micro and slurry, we've done micro slurries before where we put a membrane down, right?
Yeah, we've done rock fill and stuff like that and then put that on top, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll give you a little bit more time, but eventually it'll want to reflect that.
good, thank
I guess you can go back to the slide that showed the breakdown of life expectancy on PCI.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. So maybe Peter can help me with this one. So what I think you're asking, Mayor Rose, so what we're looking at doing this year with the program, especially on Howe Road, is we're doing a combination of micro surfacing with a thin lift HMX. What we're doing is proposing putting a scratch coat of HL2 modified for tight plating, so then that fills in the cracks, provides the stability of filling the potholes, and then put the micro surfacing on top, which you guys didn't really touch on, but can you speak to that a touch about what we talked about?
Yeah, on the road we looked at, yeah. Well, there's some pretty good rutting out there, so they're gonna put that in with a grader. And then we're gonna put a cover. I think we're doing a double or a single on that. It was a double, wasn't it?
This is a double.
Yeah. So, some of the deeper spots where there's wheel rutting, we'll put the asphalt in there, a type 3, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we'll come along with the scratch coat and the top coat on top of it. So as long as your roads aren't moving and stuff like that, you look at a road this year and you look at a road next year and everything looks good, it's not going up and down and shifting all over the place, then you should have no issues with that, But the big thing is when you're putting a micro on, it's gotta be clean, the surface has to be clean and dry, so.
So to help us put all this into perspective, what would you consider the PCI to be roughly on, say, Howe Road, like Parkwood? That's considered poor condition?
I would say it's not the best condition, but it will
Yeah.
work.
Okay,
Yeah,
and because it's important for us to understand, if we make that investment, understand that our budget is tight, and I'm sure we sound like a broken record for every municipality has a tight budget. So I guess if we're trying to understand the wisdom of investing whatever amount of money we're gonna invest this year, if we're only gonna get 2 years out of it, then it seems to me we're gonna be right back into a reconstruction, we're spending a lot more money 2 years from now. So we're questioning, is that even good money to spend? So that's why we're trying to understand in real terms, because we don't do this every day, what is the condition considered? What column does that fall into? How many years of life can we expect of what we're gonna do? Is it only a couple of years? Is it 4 years? Because that becomes a very different decision point.
yeah, we got some roads out there that's been down there a long time, like 8 to 10 years, and they were in bad shape. I give you an example. If you go over to Perth Road going into Kingston between Westport and Kingston, we actually put a micro on there, and there wasn't really a road there to begin with. So that was bad shape, but it works, and that stuff is still out there. So You know, you get your, edge line, you know, if your edge line's blowing off and this and that, you put some asphalt in, bring up your edge line. And then, put your, crossfall back in, you know, the little crossfall and stuff like that. So. Yeah, the road that we looked at, you should have a road there for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but the same as we're talking about this road out here, this new road you guys put in here.
Yeah.
So that road's good there now, but, so you leave it, you leave it, you leave it.
Yeah.
Instead of putting a surface on there and say maybe 5 or 8 years or something, you know, it looks a little gray, it looks like it's wearing out and stuff like that. Put a micro on that. If the road's in good shape, it's not shifting or anything like that, seal her up. And then you got the wear, you know, like. So you gotta get in there at the right time, like.
All right, thanks,
Um,
sir. I see,
I got a
I see a bunch of hands here, so I saw Councilor Smith, and I'll get to Councilor Downey.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you went out to take a look at that Howe Road.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves, Howe Road. And this morning I went out and took some more photos. I'm glad you recognize the condition of that road. My whole point of our discussion for the last few months on our road construction is the base.
That's right.
We talked about geotech. You know, I lived there all my life, so I can give you an idea. And what you're saying is that you're gonna put, how many mils of asphalt, and then on top of that, you're putting the storage steel?
Yeah.
But, you know, when I hear only micro surfacing, I couldn't see that ever working, not on that road. And I know our guys have been out there and they patched a lot of holes, because you really see the difference. But not saying you're guaranteed it, but you said that it's gonna last. My whole point, as the mayor stated, because I've been preaching this, I don't wanna waste good money for bad. I don't wanna do this and then 4 years later, we're gonna do it again. And that's how I look at kind of taxpayers. So, you know, if, I'm not saying you changed my mind yet, but, you're giving me a better perspective. But I'm glad that you yourself took a look at that road. Because that's how I look at things, like, nothing against our staff, but if you got the companies that are gonna do the job, needs to take a look at it. Not just saying, oh yeah, do this, it'll be all right. Because we need your expertise as well. And, like I said, I'm not saying I haven't changed my mind yet, but thanks for the information.
We'll keep
Glad
working
you-
on that.
Yeah.
But you're saying you lived there all your life, so it's, the road is wore out, basically.
Mhm.
So we want to bring it back. That's the problem, like, you know, we gotta keep on these roads and keep out and stuff like that, but if you put if them roads ain't going up and down, like, you know, you drive that road all the time. It's pretty stable, like your base is pretty stable. So if your base is pretty stable there, you're gonna pad it with asphalt, and we're gonna put a couple lifts of micro on there. You're gonna have a good road there, you know, but, you know, if you get a hump in the road and stuff like that, like a culvert heave or something like that, you're gonna have to do something there. But if everything else rides fairly decent year after year, you can preserve it for sure.
Thanks.
If you wanted to comment, Ron, then I'll go over to Councilor Downey.
Yeah, so if you found it took some of it, which is good.
Yeah.
I guess primarily two points to follow to the rectangle point. If the whole road reconstruction is $1.5 million, and we spend a third of that money now, and in 5 years we spend a third of that money, in 5 years we spend it, so we spend the same amount of money over a 15-year period, and that we at 5 years after we do a full reconstruction, we put in the same money we were going to put in for the surface, which they just said we should be doing 5 to 8 years putting a surface on this road to keep it preserved. So we're adding more money on the initial outset versus getting that same light benefit of a 15-year period for the same amount of money and keep moving forward. Second point, these guys want to stay in business and they like build a good relationship with you and they want to come back and do more work. So they're not going to do a road that isn't going to work. It's going to make them look better. That's my point.
Yeah, and the other thing I got out of this was, even if it's the same money that you spend in 15 years, but you do it in 1/3 chunks and you use different techniques, if every technique improves the surface of the road as it exists on that 5-year interval, then it's the same money, but a better service level to the residents. That's the other potential out of looking at doing things a different way. So, Councilor Downey?
On line 8, which comes up to a county road, we have a spot right up the right where it meets the county road, that about 30, 40 feet long, that's troubled. But the rest, we were talking about doing a microsurface on it. And so is there an advantage to fix the first 30 feet from the county road in? And then can you tie that in anyway? Or do you screw the base up where you tie that in? Like, how does that work?
You're thinking about, putting an asphalt in there? Or,
Yeah. to
so
fix
it's where
it,
the
just
main road
30
goes in, like the county goes into the township then?
Yeah, that line, actually, the county road goes through and line 8 goes like this. So we were gonna do some microsurfacing east from County Road 29.
Yeah,
And the first part of it is always in bad shape. I don't know what's down there, but for the rest of it, it seems to be not bad.
Mhm.
So it was suggested we microsurface the whole thing right up to the county road. I'm asking, should you fix that little section that you know is in trouble?
well, I don't know if I actually did I go see that road? I'm not sure if I did or not.
You guys did draft, we were with you, but you guys did.
Okay, well, it depends on, do we have to build it up a little bit with a micro there at the start, or do we have to pad it? You know, we could always pad it with asphalt there and then do a micro from where we pad it all the way down through.
So what's that mean then?
With the asphalt, like if it's gonna need asphalt there.
Yeah, so that, again, for all the roads, we're proposing, we're doing the HL2 modified type plating padding on all of them ahead of the microsurface. It is an additional cost, but it builds in that safety factor to fill in those things. I think with the point you're trying to get to, do we fix the base big enough to fix it? And exactly, yes, just like the New Dublin Road, rebuilding the full road is better and you'll get a longer life out of it. However, with that section, you could have potential to have a bump or a transitional issue at 29 intersection and at Church Street where you tie into the old with this microsurfacing. And there's a whole storm network in there that hasn't been addressed or reviewed or looked at. So we leave that section all potholes with poor riding condition index and do all that preliminary work to upgrade the storm system? Or do we do this and get that better PCI and a better life of it? And one of the other things that Ola touched on was at the intersections with the truck turning, but you also have the pushing from the stopping and starting of the heavy vehicles. So that how that is an indicator that leads to the pothole problem at that intersection. So honestly, and then when you get the pothole and the cracking breaking into it, what happens to the water action and it pushes on it, people on it and so it keeps breaking it out. But if we fill them in and seal them with the microsurfacing, it should mitigate that for a period of time. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly good. I was gonna close in this session or this part of the session by highlighting some of the things you just talked about. Royal just mentioned it, right? We encourage municipalities to adopt new technologies, and we want to give you a solution that's feasible, right? For us, there's no real benefit in giving you a solution that's not going to make you want to adopt this into your program. And so if Peter did come out, and again, in my opinion, my background is geotechnical engineering. I was a pavement engineer. When you say a road's in poor condition, what we verbally would say is poor is alligator cracking. If there's excessive amount of alligator cracking, and if they're small sizes, so they're very close apart, there's a base issue. Starting to see potholing, sometimes potholing doesn't come as a result of alligator cracking, but potholing is also because of something happened to cause a depression, water was able to pond, and through freezing and thawing, then a cracking happened from the top, a thermal crack versus a fatigue crack. And so typically, road conditions at intersections are worse than the rest of the straightaways. But through what we call super elevations, through bends, or right where they're stopping and steering, turning, that's where you're putting the most amount of torque on the road. That's where the axial loads are actually pushing down into your road. When you're a live load just driving down traffic, you're not transferring a lot onto the road. So that's why you'll notice that your PCI is very bad right at the intersection, and then it'll improve into the road. So hopefully that kind of tied all of that
And
together.
just so you understand the perspective that you're dealing with on this side of the table, in recent years, I understand we started to use fabrics when we've done the pulverizing, when we get into base work and so on, we start to use some fabric work
Yes.
in the actual base. That's advanced for us. So up to this point, the only things that we ever considered were full on pulverize, redo the base, full on hard top, couple of lifts if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we hopefully we keep up to surface treatment.
Yeah.
There, in one case, there was a road that was left too long and we had to actually pulverize the surface treatment, do some base work and resurface treat and so on. So these combinations of 4 or 5 different techniques, that's something we've never done. And so we don't have a comfort level with it.
Yes.
And so that's why we organized the session, was help us to understand, because we don't feel comfortable, like we feel very uncomfortable about it as a group right now.
For sure.
So if we're gonna stand in front of our residents and defend why we decided to go this route this year, we need to better understand the decisions that we're making. So you're dealing with some neophytes. They're around the table as far as this is concerned.
Good questions and conversations. Let's see, Councilor Brayton.
Oh, sorry, Councilor, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I travel this province, north, south, east, and west. And the Miller Group it's not uncommon to see them with a big contingent of equipment, men, and whatever. So I am not in any way, shape, or form questioning their ability to do that job. I think that we should, as a council, our job is to identify our problems and then ask these people, what should we do? So maybe that's what we're doing today. I don't know, but it's up to this committee to identify them. What our problems are.
And we've done that. We've identified very clearly how road is going to get something done to it this year.
Yeah.
We just need to decide what.
Yeah, that's what we got.
But I just wanted to touch on one more point that you brought up. It's floating around the PCI. It's a subjective number, and it's a weighted average up of the conditions. So you drive it to High Road, and there's a couple sections that you look at, and they're very poor. But then you drive down 20, 30, 100 meters, they're decent. But you weight the average of the PCI based on the whole thing, not the small snapshot of the piece that you look at and right in front of the, I don't know, I think the dairy farm right there. It's pretty rough on that spot right there.
Yeah.
Right, so that's, the PCI is subjective, and it's also subjective to who's actually doing the weighted value. Just like, I think a little bit off topic, for our signs, we have to do a reflective sign review every year. And there's machines you can use that will measure it, but then they also say that you should use somebody that's over 65 at dawn and dusk that has vision challenges, and that's your true indicator. So it's all subjective to who and what and how you do.
Sorry, and again, Councilor.
Yeah, but forget what I was going to say.
We can come back to you. All right. Okay, go ahead, gentlemen.
No, please, this is what it's for, and we wanted to stop and interact, and it's great to get the context of why there was interest from council as well, because I was telling Royal, it's usually public works and engineering that likes to, get in the nitty gritty, but I love that council wants to hear this and learn, so that you can, again, talk to your constituents, right? Bring this information to them, paint the picture, again, guys, it's long-term thinking, not short-term thinking. What's in the best interest, not for you guys, the people who are inheriting your job, the next generation, right? How do we make the right decisions now so they have an easier job, and they're not looking at a PCI of very lower than that, but.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
great.
Yeah, would you recommend, or any of the Miller people recommend, doing a road, and as Royal said, there's a piece of good road, would you recommend skipping that and then doing another chunk of 200 or 300 feet or whatever, and skip another, and would you recommend doing that, or do you, is the whole road got to be done at once?
I think it's in your best interest if you're gonna inconvenience your public on that road, and then also to bring the rating of that overall road. But to that point, maybe we just have to do an asphalt patch here. Maybe we just have to do a padding here. So we do a little bit of the routine maintenance as part of your own maintenance budget. Then you bring in a preservation technique to go over the whole thing. So
But you'd have to fix it up a bit first.
you should, if not, they're gonna fail at different levels. So at least this way, it's gonna fail uniformly at year 5 or year 7. If not, that'll fail after one winter season. That'll last for 7 years, and you're back to, how do we best solve this 7 years from now?
Yeah, and if you got a road, like every road's different too. So if you got a road, maybe you got a water problem in your road. Maybe your ditches ain't right, maybe we got water laying in that section. So if there's a lot of water laying there, there's no drainage in that part of the road could be different. So it's nice to go and look at a road before you do anything with it. Then you kind of talk about the pros and cons of everything.
Our problem is that we get $1, we gotta squeeze it, hang on to it, and squeeze it, and squeeze it, and squeeze it till it makes 10. So when we get 10, then we can do something. But we are strapped for money.
I didn't bring it in with me.
Do that.
Perfect. We're gonna keep the conversations going as we close out the last section. And this is what we were talking about, recycling. So this is when you wanna rehabilitate your roads, or again, for you guys, maybe it's when you go in and pulverize. Can you stabilize that road when you're pulverized? So for a fraction of the increased cost, we put something else in it to beef it up, to give it some stiffness. So, give me a second to get back into the slides. So here's a picture of the Coleman Place recycling train. It's going through an intersection in a nice country city somewhere. Within a matter of a few minutes, that train is gonna be through that intersection. That traffic that's waiting is gonna be driving right through there. At the end of the day, this is opened up to the traveling public. We like to say Coleman Place recycling is like bringing the asphalt plant, bringing the quarry to the job site. Everything is done in the field. There's no digging, dumping. You're cutting all the hauling out of recycling new roads.
At Miller, we pride ourselves on our vision, mission, and values, and our ability to leverage what we've learned to innovate and build greatness for the future. With over 100 years of experience in road construction and maintenance, we've seen it all, done it all, and are the trendsetters for safe, quality, sustainable construction and maintenance practices. Cold recycling technology significantly reduces the total greenhouse gas emissions and reduces costs with proven performance. This process can be performed in place or with a cold central plant, and involves the reclamation of the existing materials and mixing emulsified asphalt or foamed asphalt to produce a stabilized flexible mix. Recycled materials are semi-bound with increased stiffness and resistance to moisture damage. At Miller, we have a 30-year history constructing cold recycled pavements. The in-place method involves a train that is led by a recycling machine, milling the existing pavement to a predetermined depth, breaking down the material to a desired size, adding the desired binder, placing with a pavement to the desired depth, and compacting the mix. In-place treatments can be partial depth, which only include the asphalt materials, or full depth, which includes the entire thickness of the existing asphalt and some underlying granular materials. The cold central plant method utilizes pre-milled and sized materials, mixing with emulsified asphalt in a stationary plant, all laid and compacted with conventional paving equipment. The compacted materials are traffic ready within a few hours, and depending upon traffic volumes, are sealed with either a surface treatment or hot mix asphalt to provide additional pavement life for up to 20 years. For more information on cold in-place recycling or cold recycling technologies, visit www.millergroup.ca or www.roadresource.org.
So in Ontario, we like to break cold recycling into 3 categories. We like to say it's a partial depth. This means that you're only going to recycling the existing asphalt layers. Essentially, this new hybrid mix you're making is 100% wrap, reclaimed asphalt pavement. Or it's full depth. You're now going in and getting some of the gravel underneath as well. So now you're getting uncoated particles into this new mix, meaning you need more oil to stabilize it. That's what we call fold down. And the last category is what we call central plant. So this is, you've got reclaimed asphalt pavement wrap available to you, but you can't do it on site. So you're gonna reuse that wrap in a mobile plant, and then you're gonna haul what you just recycled and pave it instead of using hot mix asphalt as a low carbon solution in your municipality. Looking at the equipment involved, so this is a recycling train. It's moving from your right towards the left. A train moves somewhere between 6 to 9 meters a minute. Gas Worley likes to move it at 9 meters a minute. A tanker, this is what's bringing the glue. This is what's leading at the front of the train. After the tanker, you're followed by the mill. This is what's chewing up your road, turning it back into its aggregate form. Then this is followed by a recycler, which is as part of our spec in Ontario. You need a unit that's able to size it, crush it, and mix it all together to a certain mix design specification. And then behind it's a paving train. So we have a pickup elevator here and a paver and some rollers, and it's just paved like regular hot mix asphalt. There's also a single unit variant. In some municipalities, we're able to use it, but they overwrite the ministry spec. As you can see, it doesn't have that big recycling unit. So here in the mill itself, we are chewing up the road and mixing it in the drum, and then the drum back with it as well. So this is more ideal when you're in a more urbanized, more city environment, more intersections and driveways to go through. It just shortens up the train and just gives you more ability to get to your end limits and whatnot. This is what the central plant equipment looks like. So you can see our mobile plant there. You still need your tanker. You still got to bring the glue to the party. And then you have a loader there working the material. And whatever you mix, you haul and pave that day before the emulsion breaks and you lose your workability with that mix. So we have two different binding agent emulsions that Ola told you about. High flow 150 is what we typically use as an emulsion. But we also have expanded asphalt. And expanded asphalt is just hot AC at 5828 grade. It's brought to site at 170 degrees, but on site we inject it with air and water, essentially cutting its viscosity, making it want to move around and spot well together inside the mix. But there are two separate specifications, two separate quality assurance acceptance as well in the specifications, just providing it to you for knowledge. What we like to ask municipalities is, as you're venturing into cold in place recycling, say either or, because really as contractors, there's a risk and pros and cons to either or, depending on the time of year or where we're working, and favoring one over the other, there's no price difference, really. So it's more of, instead of speccing it as Cyrene, spec it as either CIR or Cyrene. They're both the same. The ministry now is asking its consultants to do a green pave analysis. So in addition to doing the pavement design, life cycle costing, how green is your design recommendations? So I'm just highlighting this because under the materials and resource and energy and atmosphere categories, doing this type of technology is top marks. And they'll immediately push it from a bronze to a silver or silver to a gold. And the reason why it's considered a greener technology, and you can see in this graph here on the far left, is hot mix asphalt. It takes about 680 megajoules per ton. So let's convert this just down to like diesel. Right? The amount of diesel that you're burning at the quarry, blasting the stone, hauling all that rock around, going to the asphalt plant, heating the burner up to 250 degrees to cook the moisture out of the stone. You're cutting all that diesel out, and in situ, you're spending about 1/5 of the energy. So that's really the carbon savings and why, again, regions are already doing this, counties are doing this. Leeds County has a cold in place program, Brockville has a cold in place program. Again, they've adopted, they've innovated, they understand why it's important. And there's a cost saving component as well, right? By doing this, you can cut a few lifts of asphalt, you can don't have to excavate and whatever. For you guys in a municipality, it's really about, is there potential at some point where you do have rehabilitation of your roads? And instead of 2-3 lifts of asphalt, can you do it cold in place? Do you think right now in your program, there is an opportunity in the future? Maybe. Okay.
Well, so I need to, no pun intended, because I just realized what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
I need to dive a little bit deeper into something that I heard that was new to me.
Of course.
So up until now, conventional wisdom from attending conferences and seminars and that type of thing, is that we need a certain depth. So if we only typically put one or maybe two lifts on, we're not setting ourselves up for success because we don't have the recycling options available to us. You need a certain depth. But I heard a full depth holding place gets down to where you're getting into some of the gravel and so on. So that suggests to me, it almost doesn't matter how much existing pavement you have. If you're getting down into the gravel, then you should be able to do this. Now, if you've only got a single depth and you're wanting to put two on, you're gonna have to add a lot more new material, something like I'm willing to hear those types of things, but that really caught my interest. So can you dive into, if we have thin roads, is
Yes.
this still an option for us?
For sure, yes, yeah, again, we have to talk about this as internationally, what's happening, right? Internationally, this is just called CIR, hold in place recycling.
Right.
Going how deep you want, going how wide you want, so you can pull in your gravel shoulder if you want to. Yes, as you add more gravel in, you need to add more binder, more asphalt cement, and that's really the driving cost. So the spec right now between a partial depth says you need about 1%, a full depth says you need 2.8. But we're working with the ministry to say this number shouldn't be 2.8, it should be fixed. It should depend on what the mix designer tells me, which might be 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, which kind of drives. But you can recycle a chip seal road if, let's say, it's now increasing traffic volumes and it's time for it. And we can just do gravel roads and use emulsion to bind it all together again. The opportunities really are endless. It's really about structural capacity needs. What does the road need to make sure it's not going to rut when it just stays in the gravel road, right?
Okay, and so let's talk about rutting, because in the examples that I saw, it looked to me like the profile of the road that was being recycled wasn't too bad.
Yep.
But if we think about Howe Road, where and never mind the particularly problematic spots where it needs some particular attention, but is this still viable if you have longitudinal ruts or
Oh, for sure.
you know, are there challenges to all of that?
No. It's when your road is at that again, this is a 15 to 20-year solution.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's lasting folks 30 years. Let's be honest, you need your budget to last you 30, 35 years before you can touch the road. I'll get to it another slide, I think, but this hybrid mix keeps getting stronger with time because there's quite a bit of air in it, like voids, and you're still consolidating. So the ministry has shown that over 10 years, it gets 3 times stronger, right? So it actually can definitely bear any of the loads you're putting on it, but then there's a cost point of view, right? So doing a preservation strategy is going to get you 10 years, but it's about a third or half the cost depending on what you're doing. It's still cheaper than asphalt, but do you need 20 years right now? Is that what you want to do to that road? And it's more about network optimization and what your public works and things.
And can fabrics play a role in this if it's appropriate or not, or?
Fabrics is, what I would say is that there's already a geotextile fabric in it. It's non-woven, so it'll be easy for us to chew it up again when we go through reclaiming. But in terms of paving, if you want it as an added benefit, once we're done with the cold in place, and we typically top these, they're topped with a layer of asphalt,
Okay.
but they can be topped with chip seal.
Right.
As an added benefit, you put a geotextile, put a chip seal. Why not? You're gonna give yourself another 2-3 years.
Yeah, so I was just gonna point that out, the fact that you do look like a lot of cost savings being around for it. But you do still have to cap it with a micro or something to seal it. It's a porous, voidy looking surface and it doesn't dry well and it doesn't behave well if you leave it with frost cycle. But the maybe part for me is I'm still new here, is to figure out the base, what we have. We've got to pick the right roads that have the views that can say that, yeah, we're not gonna, the road has 6 inches of A and 18 inches of B underneath it already, so now, yes, we can do the cold place and pull up some of that grader and do it. If it's a road 7, for example, which is a road,
Yeah.
that would, I don't know if it's necessarily a really good cold place, because it doesn't have super great weight.
Yeah.
Right, so that's up to the candidate.
Okay, all right.
What I will say to answer that, no, go ahead, Rolly, please.
No, there's just listening, there's 2 things. We have to see the road before we even come up with anything. That's number 1. But number 2, you guys need to keep track of your road cycle, because in the spring, if it's pumping up through, that's something that you see, we don't see. So when we come along in May, end of April, and the road has no moisture, no nothing, and wow, this is a perfect candidate. So that, you know, that we kind of have to leave up to you guys to realize what you have for a base, because it's like building a house. It doesn't matter what you put on the roof. If if your foundation isn't any good, you don't have a good house. Pretty much the same thing with roads. So we have to kind of have an idea what you're looking at year round to tell us, well, like we get a lot of water here. I went to a conference one time and the guy said, he said, when you're driving down that road, you got to look on the right-hand side and make sure your ditches are good. Then you drive down again, you look on the left-hand side and make sure dishes are good. And he said, when you're all done, go down and look on both sides and make sure that your ditches are good. Because to get rid of that moisture, that's the key. That is a key. It doesn't matter. I just was thinking that when you guys were talking.
Cannot say it enough.
Yeah,
Water and pavement do not get along.
Yeah.
So really, how's it draining? Where's the water going? How do you keep it?
yeah, the time it have, I would like kind of focus on the exact year, but I believe it was fully reconstructed in around '96. And if you notice, it's built up around, it's much higher than everything else around it. It's got a good ditch structure with lots of, there's 5 creek or water portions that cross through it, so the water can get away. So it could be a candidate for a full place. I'm sure.
Yeah. Just want to close off the question that came in. One of the municipalities that we really say is like a champion of this is SDNG. SDNG has an annual program, probably going about a decade now, and they put out a decent amount of work. They do 11 roads. It's part of their budget. They do all the design in-house. They don't hire a consultant. It's always 4 inches if it's only asphalt, 6 inches if it's got some gravel he wants to get into it, and he gets the performance that he needs. So he doesn't overcomplicate it with what consultants are feeding him or whatever. He's going off experience. Obviously, he has the luxury of having gone through that experience, and you guys are word of mouth. But anyways, just wanted to highlight that. So looking at candidate selection, naturally we'll talk into that. So here's a cross section of your paving structure, depending on, does it have a granular base, a sub base, and a subgrade? Good materials, well draining, well compacted during installation. Yes, you can add a geotextile in your gravel as well to fortify it. When you're looking at partial depth, the asphalt is the problem. The granular materials, you don't think there's anything going on yet. You haven't lost your fines from water going through it. It's just top-down cracking, or what we call thermal cracking. So from the environment, the asphalt started to fatigue and fail, and the crop is propagated, so you can recycle just the asphalt. Once you start getting into rutting, alligator cracking, what we call fatigue, bottom-up cracking, now you need to go a little bit deeper, right? I hate using this expression, but like putting lipstick on a pig. If you're only going to recycle the asphalt, but the gravel, the base is the issue, you're not going to get the 15, 20 years that you designed for without going deep enough to address the problem. So visually looking at the surface, here's the candidate. Yes, there's quite a bit of cracking, but if you notice, they're transverse in nature. So they run perpendicular to the road. There are block cracks, which suggests that it's just in the asphalt. It's thermal related, maybe some shrinkage of the asphalt. Maybe they picked a bad PG grade at the time, but there's no rutting. Your shoulders look good. There's not too much heavement. There probably is quite a bit of asphalt on this road. We only need to recycle 4 inches here. There's probably 8 inches of asphalt on it. If you got roads that look like this, which I'm hoping Howe Road does not look like this.
Well.
I still need to go take a look at it. You're looking at it more of a full depth candidate, right? There's stuff here, the alligator cracking is not just in the wheel paths, it's going all the way. You can see there's been potholes that they're routinely filling. Clearly this, over the 12 months of the year, this road is moving around and it's being pushed down and just settling. So there's something going on here. You've got to go deeper to address this problem. Maybe you have to go a foot and recycle a foot of it.
So
yes,
just with the people here, the Addison Road should be a good representation of what you're talking about here, because it was in bad shape, as everybody knows. You'd almost avoid going through there. You could go around by 4th and just get to Athens. So, you guys knew what that road was like. So that's going to be a good point for you guys to follow as time goes on to see how well it performs. And it's going to work, I'll guarantee you. That job is, and like I said, you guys all know what it was like and what it is like, so.
That's right.
We go around by North Augusta to get that.
We're gonna try to do that a little better, Earl.
Thank you. So yeah, base stabilization, obviously you're pulverizing here as part of, your rehabilitation, I guess, is it of your gravel? Or, and you put a lift of asphalt on top? So you just pulverize, compact, regrade, and then put a lift of asphalt?
No, I think we normally add aggregates, because people will complain, every time you do the road, you raise it, my driveway ends up like this.
Yes.
So, you know, we do add some material
Okay.
traditionally. Now, maybe with some of these techniques, we don't need to as much, I don't know.
I don't know, I can't speak necessarily what they did here.
Yep.
My typical practice is you pulverize it, grade it out to the full 8 meter wide width.
Yep.
And then build up with the shown or these guys call it carpet or geotech.
Correct. Yes.
I have seen it where they pulverize, keep it all in the middle, and then put a bit of stone on top of it, put lots of granular rim on the outside, which I don't think is the way to do it.
Well, reshape the road with what you pulverize, then you bring your new A gravel to dress it, suggest your final profile of crossfall you want to put in. And then typically we do our top it waterproof the road with something, whether it's asphalt or chip seal. But for your gravel roads, how are you maintaining them? Is it just, do you do dust suppression, like calcium chlorides, or?
Yeah. Well,
Oh, so springtime.
okay, so what so they do think, well, we try to do a third of the roads in the township annually with gravel. What the guys do is they open the road up, so they cut it back 2 inroads on either side, lay down new stone down the middle, and they blend it back across, rebuild the crossfall, and then hit it with the calcium chloride. The magnesium chloride, yeah.
Good, no, that's good. You're getting good performance out of it.
They do a really good job cutting it out.
Right, no washboarding, no potholing, all that, great.
And we have it.
Yes, we pack it. They do a really good job.
Good. So when you stabilize, you can mechanically stabilize, so this is within the process, you can add new A gravel, you can add wrap, so you can put other stone in to structurally make it stronger, or you can chemically stabilize. So chemically stabilizing is more when you have clay, silty soils, frost heaving, where water basically wants to do capillary forces, it wants to move up through your structure, causes heaving. And so you can chemically stabilize using lime, cement. In the US, they use kiln dust and fly ash. But we use a lot of calcium chloride here in Ontario. And then you can also use emulsion for your soils. So to give you some visuals, this is a gravel road. It sees 100% truck traffic, and it just turns to mud every 2 to 3 weeks. And maintenance department from the city of Vaughan would go out, talk if it's an A gravel, doesn't matter, the trucks are going to turn to dust and just mud and you know, other issues like that. Candidate for some sort of stabilization to lower your maintenance costs. This is a picture from when we used to do quite a bit of wind farm work. You can barely get your pickup truck through a farm field. You can imagine how heavy equipment wants to get through there. But you stabilize it and it's stiff as a road, and you use cement for doing this kind of stuff. So just to give you some more perspective, maybe there's a gravel road, maybe there's a trial you're interested in, where, hey, on this gravel road, I'm gonna put something other than just calcium to see, right? Like, will it give me enough life where I don't have to touch that thing for another 10 years, right? So just to float that idea with you, yeah,
Our trial's free.
I gotta talk to my boss.
You say you don't have to touch the gravel road, you'd still have to grade it. You'd still have to grade it, right?
Depending on how much traffic is on it, but what we find with these gravel roads is there's maybe farm traffic that goes on it, or maybe it's like a detour that somebody happens to take, but there's not much action on these roads. So if you're not putting traffic on it, there's no reason for some unraveling of something that's cement stabilized. Think of it almost like you're turning into a concrete pad. And again, this is for roads where you don't have utilities, right? You don't have to ever trench in and fix a gas line or a water line or something. It's just a gravel road. You want to put a little bit in it, turn to a concrete road, and move on with your life for a little bit.
So when you say, I know it's not a full-on concrete road, but when you say that, then my mind immediately goes to County Road 49 in Prince Edward County.
Yes.
And so I know that's a totally different beast, but it makes me then wonder, so what happens when the year comes where you do have to do some work? have you now created a problem for yourself that we've never had because we've never done any cement work on any of our roads? So is it harder to recycle? Is it harder to work once you get to the point where it needs attention?
No, not for that. We're not putting that much cement in it. And it's quite, what's the word? There's still quite a bit of airborne.
Okay.
In that mix. Over the course of time, those cementatious bonds are gonna break down. They'll turn into just like dust and sand type bonds, and it'll turn back into its gravel road form.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I love that you brought up 49, because I have a couple slides to talk about something we're trying to do at 49.
Okay.
Which is fact, flexible asphalt pole technology. So this is a mix that's unique to Miller that we make. It's a cold mix, so it's made in our central plant, and you can pave it on any road in any condition. It's essentially flexible, so as the road heaves in the winter, the underside of it will move, you won't see it on the surface, and the mix can crack. So we do quite a bit of this work in Halliburton, Muskoka, Indian Hill, and we're working to kind of speak to other folks in Canadian Shield country, where you've got shallow bedrock, you've got high water table. It just heaves. Not only is it part of the culture, hopefully it's not part of something that happens here, but if it is, I've got a solution for you. So
Well, we farm potholes in the spring.
yeah, so here's some candidates here. So again, where bedrock is shallow, again, a gravel road that's constantly got potholes popping up on it. Again, because the water tables are shallow. And on the far right is, it was actually in the municipality, but they did not have the money to dig up half the road and reconstruct it. So we offered them a solution to just, hey, let's just slap this thing on top of it, hide the problem beneath, and this will service the 10 residents that live on that road. And so we did that last year, and so far it's been performing well through the winter. As I mentioned, it's made in our central plant. The cool thing about this is it's a cold mix, so we can actually stockpile for up to a year. So you can make it at any point of the time of the year, wait and pave it as needed. And so, and it's paved with a conventional paver, as you can see there. And then we just put some sand or screenings on it to kind of choke it, because it is an open graded mix, meaning there's a lot of holes in it. So you just want to make sure to prevent too much movement because it is flexible. To give you some performance ideas, did this first, I want to say 8 years ago, and we're still seeing very, very good performance. And I'm hoping to meet with Prince Edward County to talk about Highway 40, because the cost to rip out the concrete pads all along the road, and they're gonna have to phase that over 10 years to get the money they need, versus doing a trial, a paid trial, to see if maybe there is a way to, hey, let's leave the concrete there. If you guys are okay with a grade raise, we're gonna raise the grade about 2 inches, but let's pave this flexible mix on, right? So that people aren't driving like this when they're going to the beach.
Quick question. Yeah, Chris, that's your proprietary product.
For us, fact is, yes.
So is it similar to what the mastic?
No, so it's, it uses a gelled emulsion.
No, there's a product called mastic.
Okay.
Is it similar? And I just want to reach around because they did it in our neighbors. They got
did they?
it on Weir Road. It's called a mastic product. It sounds look very similar. to this. It's something that's I don't want to say rubberized, because that's not a great word, but
Right.
it looks very similar to it, where it goes across any bridges and it allows everything to move underneath it. They said, but it's their proprietary product.
Interesting. And the manufacturer is called Mastic?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into it. Yeah.
Curious with with your facts product, does it have the same restrictions in terms of when it can be laid down? Is it like, can you go extend into the year when you can lay it down?
Yes, again, yeah. We were paving it into November last year. Because again, it's full constructed, it's a cold, it's essentially a cold patch, but we can pave the cold patch. So.
Okay. Councilor Dan?
One of the questions that keep coming up is on 29, on the big curves up here towards Addison. When you're going north, your right wheel, that pavement's all gone. Does anybody here know what? I don't even know if it was the Miller Group that did that work, but that's, do you know where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So what was the process done there? Because I think that's why folks are reluctant, because they think it was a microsurface, and it lasted, I think, this is year 3 or something.
that micro out there, we didn't do that. That's a good one. But we did it down the road farther, so
On 29?
on 29, we have did sections on 29, but that section that you're talking about, we didn't do that. So maybe that road shifted a little bit. Maybe when they put the scratch on, they opened it up to traffic too soon and it didn't have a bond. You know, so it could have been different things happen there. Yeah, I know the section you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and so some others, have talked at the county level about this, and one of the other things that was offered was the road may not have been cleaned.
It might have not have been clean. You've got to make sure it's clean.
We were just telling that on the way down this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to clean. Yeah, I think that road. Yeah, I think that was done about 3 or 4 years ago, yeah. But like I said, it could have been opened up for traffic a little too soon, and the road didn't seal the way it should have, or they laid it on too thick, you know? So there's different things that could have happened there. Yeah, that's a bad one. But we didn't do it.
Councilor Smith?
Yeah, I don't think you did Lynn Road either, County Road 46 back in the day either.
County Road 4?
County 46, that's the one that goes from 27 over to Highway 2. Another company did that, the same situation. But anyway,
Yeah.
overall, I want to thank you for your presentation. Wow, informative.
Yeah, what I was gonna suggest was, we've had a light lunch, brought in. I don't know how much time you plan on spending with this, so I'll go with the consensus of the group, but maybe we'll break, have a bite. That was a bit of a brain dump. So I suspect there may be probably 2 or 3 more questions, you know, sort of simmering, ready to come to the surface. So if we want to break and get a little bit of energy, come back and entertain, you know, final few questions. Is that gonna work for everybody?
Yes, sure. I'll listen.
Maybe they
Okay,
don't want
so one more and then we'll go. Councilor Brayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I live just down here on County Road 7. And County Road 7 and 29 Highway, doesn't matter which way I go, north or south on 'em, really turned me off on this micro, whatever you want to call it, and patching, and this is why I'm saying, I want no part of it. I would like to have it repaved. If we can't do it all at once, I would be satisfied to take whatever we can afford, when we can afford it. And, but I'll tell you, looking at them 2 roads, have anybody can, man, maybe it's not the road's fault, maybe it's the people's fault that didn't, renew it when they should have done it. But I'll tell you, in this day and age, to have 2 roads like that in a county, like it's beyond my mind. Thank you. And I don't care, I'm not blaming Miller. I'm blaming whoever did it.
No, listen, at the end of the day, we're all taxpayers as well.
Yeah.
We want to make sure. our money's
I'm
spent
not
well.
saying that you guys didn't do your job, because I'm quite sure you did, and you know how to do it. But I'm just telling you, I know how to, what I see in 2 roads, I know what I think.
This is County Road 29.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the main artery between Smith Falls. And
It is,
Brock.
but we can go for a drive and I can show you 2 different examples on 29. If you want to see the worst part and the part that we did before. With a micro, you don't want to see it flaking for sure. You want to see it wear it, like with snow plows and stuff like that. If it's flaking, something was done wrong for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we plan on doing a bus tour, hopefully not too far from now, as we get into slightly better weather. And this is one of the things that I talked to staff about, is that, yeah, we all know the bad examples because they're what's sticking in our minds, but hopefully we can go around and see some good examples, because I would hate to close our minds to a viable opportunity just because we've got two or three bad examples that we drive over every day. If they are the exception and we can see some good examples, then maybe we can open some minds and, you know, become a little bit more comfortable with it. So.
Be a little easier on the mind.
Yeah, exactly. All righty, so I'm looking to staff, where did we set up the food? Is just over in the, okay, so there's a small boardroom just across the hallway here. So let's break and boost our blood sugar a little bit. And I'm sure that we'll think of another question or 2 and then wrap up the day. So Thanks so far.
Do you want to stop the live stream?
Yes, yeah, we'll stop the live stream. I guess, can we re-live stream it when we come back for additional questions or? Or we can start about.
We'll equate to separate.
Yeah,
So I
well, I think that's fine.
Or I could just mute it like we did for the budget.
Oh, okay, all right, yes, fair
I can
enough.
turn the camera off.
Yes, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that and leave
love that idea.
Okay,
What's that?
alrighty, so, welcome back, everybody, after a nice little lunch break, and I just learned apparently that, the school board's culinary program, that runs out of, Thousand Island Secondary School was, responsible for providing that delicious lunch today, so kudos to them. I think, I didn't see any frowns on any faces. I think everybody enjoyed it, so. Alrighty, so, this is our sort of final opportunity as we had a chance to let some of that soak in and, start to piece the puzzles together and make it all make sense. Our final opportunity, if anybody has any questions for these fine folks that came and spent their time with us today, we're very appreciative. Any other questions, Councillor Brayton?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad they came and answered our questions. Now I have another one. We rebuilt Kilkenny Road. How long ago? 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's probably more than that, but
Well, at that time, we were told that we should put a lift on it. Does that sound right?
I'm not sure if they would necessarily know. I don't think it was Miller that was involved in
No.
that, but,
No, I was just asking a question. We never did put a lift on it, so you say it's over 10 years, and is it too late to put a lift on it now? Or,
What's the condition of the road now in terms of?
I think it's decent,
Potholing, rutting?
I think it's decent, I don't know, maybe,
yeah, I guess we'll let Royal
yeah,
look after that question.
And don't quote me on the number, but I think it's a bit of 78 for the PCI.
say what?
It's a 78 on the PCI index. Don't quote me, I can go look, but it's on the higher end. It's in the good category.
Yeah, okay.
And yes, it's in the window where it should either have a full second lift of asphalt or a micro surfacing, or it's on the list that we need to get to, but we gotta get to.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Royal Road is that bad yet, is it?
No,
Not
but
bad at all.
we wanna preserve it. We wanna get it.
Exactly.
Right, so
But
it's a
is
prime candidate.
Are we in the wheelhouse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're in the wheelhouse. Now, it's not in this year's budget, but
No,
you're in that time.
no. But is the road in the wheelhouse to be done and say,
He just said it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
But based on the condition rating, and again, if it's not potholing, right, if there's not extensive amount of cracking,
I don't,
then yes, you can preserve it. In terms of if it needs a lift of asphalt, that's more of a structural question. So if you've got really bad rutting, that means that your current structure isn't strong enough for the loads. But if you don't even have rutting on the road, yeah, it's in preservation. Try to hit it before it goes below 70. Once you go into 70, that means that there's cracking on it. You're not spending money every year on crack sealing, and now you put it into a category where we're waiting till year 15 when we can actually rehabilitate it. We let it go too far. Now we're gonna wait another 10 years. We know how it's gonna keep getting worse and worse, but then I can dictate the funds to truly fix the problem, because I let it get there.
okay, I just wondered if it was there or not.
And Kilkenny is listed in the 10-year capital plan that we presented with the budget.
Okay,
I don't know,
Yeah.
can't remember off that, exactly which year it was in, but.
yeah, I can't remember, but I remember being told back in the day that it should be 4 or 5 years, we should put another lift on it. I didn't know whether it left the rain or snow or what.
Councillor Oster.
With some of these different road treatments, do you have for me, I don't know if you have a cost per kilometer when you look at things, like just for general discussion, realizing there's some fix-up that's gotta be done, but so.
I'd say like if we're going, again, by the meter squared, and again, this is more high level.
Right.
Thought, cold in place recycling could be somewhere between $15 and $20 a square. Micro surfacing is typically done as a double, and it's usually somewhere between $10 and $12 a square. Surface treatment is also in that same ballpark, 10 and 12. A slurry might be closer to 5 and 7.5. So that's kind of the ranges.
Okay.
So you're looking at 5, 10, or 15, and then asphalt's usually at 25 or 30. That's kind of the scale. But obviously, more volume of work, prices go down, depending on how you spec it. If you're speccing a clean aggregate, more expensive oil, then your surface treatment price goes up. Typically, we see what we call the class 2 graded seals. They're the most locally available, just crushed aggregate, could be pit run aggregate. That'll really bring your cost down with the high flow. I have Chantel in the room. Do you know, not here, but is there any neighboring townships that do quite a bit of surface treatment? And you'd say like good tenders and good programs?
We do a lot.
So
Frontenac's a big.
Lanark County, but of course, this year they're not doing any surface treatment. They're doing, more micro, River Lakes. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Rideau Lakes is a big one, but yeah,
They had a
the
big
double
program.
surface treatment. Yeah, it's typically, we usually see class 2, class 6. It depends, could be HF 150S or it could be P, which is the polymer. So it just depends. The P is more expensive in terms of cost. And yeah, we're running around the 850 mark for a double surface treatment. So that'd be the 2 layers. Yeah.
I know,
Go ahead, Councilor.
yeah, I know Rita Lakes borrowed $1 million a few years ago and done the turnship or whatever you want to call it. And I know next year that they had the grader in there grading it up because it was full of potholes and they couldn't grade it as a grader, so they ripped it up and started all over. After putting $1 million in.
This is a good reminder about candidate selection.
Yeah.
To give you an example, we're looking at a road with the ministry in northeast region where they had a pulverizing program. They put in a double surface treatment, and this following year they were going to do a micro surfacing. Problem with that road is frost penetration in those areas is 2 meters, and the entire road sometimes is below the water table because of how much the water comes up. So these treatments are a waterproofing. They're not for structural capacity. They're not to manage drainage issues. So they didn't fix the root cause problem. They did something else. And of course, it's not going to last. As I mentioned, one of our taglines, right treatment, right road, right time. Those 3 variables are important. And that's why, you know, the people that are responsible for managing the funds, managing the asset, it's doing the homework to make sure that, you know, we are getting the performance that we wanted to.
That's why we went for long.
So something you mentioned partway through your presentation, I can picture the slide. I can't remember the terms involved. You recommended don't get too specific. Allow you guys to choose the fog type or the emulsion type. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I think it was looking at basically there are different emulsions that are available for surface treatment programs. And what we recommend is it doesn't hurt, and it's not just Miller. You can go to the other providers as well. Give us an idea of the tender and the type of roads that you want to put out. Like we are involved with helping people kind of develop specifications that make more sense because the technology is changing around emulsions. You mentioned tar and chip. We no longer use tar. Then it was prime and double. We no longer use prime float either. Now we're into a high float, but even with high floats, the penetration values are changing. Asphalt has a unique emulsion that they call HP 200. A lot of our customers are now speccing HP 200. So don't be afraid to reach out and we can give you some insight on what others are doing and what's working. As Chantal mentioned, polymer gives you that extra adhesive and bond, but it's for that cost. And do you really need it? And how early do you open it to traffic and what kind of traffic is it? Right? If you're on a road that sees constant traffic, then for sure, you want something that sets up quicker so that once everybody leaves the operation, you're not going to lose all the stone that you just paid to put on your ground to keep your, you know, road safe 10 years.
Any other questions at this point?
Road preparation, guys, people is so important with these techniques too. Sometimes the county or township, they'll do their own grading. And when you're talking about the potholes, you're later, if you don't get the potholes, if you don't get to the bottom of them and you only fill them in, what happens on a gravel road when you fill them in? You know, you got potholes in a week. So that's the same thing with your treatments. If you don't get the preparation proper, you're not going to have success.
Okay, go ahead. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, and this is all new to me as well, so I'm learning a whole lot. But what I hope we're taking out of this is that there's a whole lot more options open to council in terms of how we maintain our roads and how we extend them. And where we think of I'd like to see us being able to look at where do we need to be in 10 years, and how do we treat the roads, how do we identify which roads, and what kind of treatments do we have to extend our, because we know that we're spending a lot in capital, but we're still hard in making a dent in the roads. So I think this is giving us an opportunity to be able to say, let's look at a plan for how we're going to use some of these treatments to get have a good plan in place.
I was sharing with some of the gentlemen, we were in the lunch lineup, that what we're faced with right now as a council is that we have an opportunity to maybe do things differently than we have been. But we're wrestling with the fact that we're either going to end up looking like heroes or zeros, because we're the ones making that decision to pivot potentially from the traditional way of doing things. And if it ends up being the right decision, then great. You know, some future council is going to find it a lot easier to continue a program that has already shown to work. We're the ones that are going to be making the decision. Is now the right time? Or are we willing to take the risk to pivot away from some of these traditional and costly ways of dealing with roads and try something a little bit different? Like, you know, I don't want to make the mistake that we move from ox and cart to a hydrogen blimp and then goes boom, right? You know, that clearly ends up not being good historically. So I hope that that's not what we end up doing. I was encouraged. I think I heard that to some extent, some of you folks will be willing to, as we do our road tour, to actually, you know, see and touch and understand in context. You know, theory is one thing, but seeing is believing and understanding. So it would be great if you would be willing in some capacity to come back and participate and sort of answer questions live as we're pointing at an example.
Well, I mean, I did a presentation a month ago from Township, up in the Worcester area, north in the Worcester. I've got to go back 5-hour drive to go look at some roads with them, but I don't mind. It's part of the service that Member provides, whether it's any of our experts. We want to come out, take a look, and again, make sure that, you know, you're going to get what you want to pay for, right? We're not, it's not a snake oil concept here, right? It's not at all. Like, it's not in our interest. We truly want to let you know, guide you guys, so we can ensure that long-term thinking, right? We want to grow preservation and make it part of your program to the point where you actually know, hey, X amount of dollars of the budget every year is just for preservation. The way I have a Croxia program, we're working with our parent company in a capacity to go to the federal government and say, hey, why aren't we giving grants to townships? Why aren't we helping folks that don't have necessarily the funding they need, but at the rate at which our assets are failing, they need more funding to invest in this, and you guys know better, so why can't you do that? So there's things like that happening as well, and so, yeah.
Okay, Councilor Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a person in the gallery here that lives less than 6 miles from here. Believe it or not. Maybe he could come on our tour with us when we go. Even if we did have to buy him. I don't know whether he works for food or money, but.
So it's not that I have anything against that member of the public. I know who you're referring to. The only thing that we're going to have to be careful of is if we extend that invitation to him. We've got 9,000 plus other residents. You know, I don't know that we have in the budget to charter enough buses to provide that same opportunity to everybody.
He's not from that township.
Yes, he is. The member of the public is one of our residents.
I don't think that's who he's talking about.
I'm not talking about him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Well,
I'm talking about one of the Miller group.
oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've already sort of talked about that at the break, and they've indicated that to some extent, I don't necessarily. You're welcome to bring the whole entourage if you like, but but I don't expect you to tie up all of those resources. So
We'll find the bus for you.
Again, as part of technical services, what they offer us also is design recommendations. So even for the quoting place stuff, instead of going out to a consultant, like again, free of charge, we'll give you some preliminary ideas that you could eventually take to a consultant just to give you an idea. We do offer those services. One of the things I wanted to touch on was actually brought up with Council Brain was put a lift on it. And so this concept of only putting a single lift of something on a road, because we live in snow country, we have plow activity on our roads. So if you don't have good profile, a proper crown, frost fall, your plows are just gonna shave a single lift of something you put into the road. So just be mindful that you may need a double lift. The initial one is a scratch coat, kind of fix the shape of the road to make sure the plows don't destroy what you just, put down. And then to that point, also what we see, especially more in country roads, is along the edge, right? So your shoulders and your roads are built at different structures and they'll move a little bit. Plows tend to dig and break out and you've got edge cracking all along your roads. But for some reason, that whole road now needs treatment. No, just along the edge, you can do some asphalt patching. There's different innovative techniques, and then you can do a micro or slurry on top of it. And this is being done by other townships and municipalities, just to give you an idea. Thank you.
So I have a conceptual question, and I'll give Floral the first opportunity if he wants, or he may just toss the hot potato your way directly. So one of the things that I started to think about as we were having lunch was, and I don't know if other municipalities have already tried this and it's proven to work, or they've tried it and it's proven not to work. But we're at the stage where we know that our road network needs more attention than we can afford to give it. We accept that. Is there merit in going around, and for instance, I'll use Howe Road because some of you have already traveled it. So there's some really bad sections on Howe Road. Can we look at our road network and say, why don't we spend a year or two running around and doing the patches that will just improve life, and then go and start to do some of these preservation techniques and so on? Earlier, you touched on do a road as a project, fix the bad spots, and then do your preservation. Just rather than. So have other people tried the running around technique and it's proven to fail, or is that a concept that?
Not at all, but again, it speaks to funds that are available to you. But having a routine maintenance program, and again, is it just hiring summer students and all they're going around is patching the roads on an annual basis, like during the summer? Yes, it then changes the overall PCI, right? What is the candidate now for, and paints a better picture of the entire road. But one of the things you mentioned that just gave me a thought. We went to Pelham to talk to them. They're near Fort Erie, and they're in kind of a little bit of a crisis with their roads because when they were all initially constructed, they were built on the locally available sand at the time, which was a really bad source to build roads with. So now 80 to 90% of their entire network needs to be addressed. And they get little to no funding because even if the roads department wants to do something, parks decided to take a precedence, and now the funding actually has to go to parks and how they split the finance. And more of how with the financial component of what we're doing, decision making is really coming from a financial point of view versus from the roads experts point of view, which is again, how do you change that culture, that mentality? And this is where you look at what your neighbors are doing. Again, the counties around you, I think, are adopting preservation, are adopting recycling. And so really it's coming down now to the township level as well, where the conversation needs to happen. And you've got to start somewhere, Mayor.
Yeah.
So it's
and the challenge that we're facing, and we're not unique, going back to the analogy of Councillor Smith and the oil changes and so on. I think we all know we need to ultimately get to the point, whether it takes 10 or 20 or 30 years, where we never have to buy a new engine, right? That we just get to those routine oil changes. But it's what techniques can we employ to get things to the stage where we're preserving them and doing the good work. And so that's what I'm looking for, is something innovative to help us take a leap ahead, like 2 steps ahead, rather than just this incremental step where it might be 50 years before we get to that ideal preservation technique if we just crawl along. So I'm looking at innovative ways to say, can we do something different and get 2 steps in one every now and then? That's why I was wondering, should we run around and spend a year or two fixing just the really bad spots on as many roads as we can, rather than looking at them as complete road topics, then come back and say, okay, now are we 1 step closer to being able to do some preservation here and there? While we improve the lives for the residents that are on these 20-year-old roads, where there's 2 sections where they can walk faster than they can drive over.
For sure. And do you guys do you do in-house patching?
Yeah, so to the mayor's point, so I guess that really all kind of not the same way from what you were saying, but finance, but for them, money.
Yeah.
We do have a $20,000 asphalt patching line in the operating budget that I don't think was utilized last year at all, but really $20,000 doesn't go very paving patches. There's two differentiations between patching. The patching that the guys do with the hot box and the one form of patching, but which patching I think that you're talking about is what we actually put a lift or a scope over top of a big section. Now, the counties used to, and I'm not sure if they still do, they used to do the HF2 modified patches, and they would be like anywhere from 20 to 120 meters long. And they smooth it out. We can do that, but that comes down to the funding. It should be part of the program that we're talking about, and doing those that's your stopgaps to get you to where we can come back with the micro or the slurry or whatever the application we would.
Okay.
So just really, at this point, it comes down to the dollars.
Yep.
$5 million a year.
Okay. Councilor Morel?
When talking patching in a road, I look at my road. And you gotta actually cut that section out and start all over.
You don't have to necessarily.
Well, when you got more potholes and you got asphalt, you kinda gotta do something more than just throw something on top of it.
Well, I filled it in. Jones's Falls
For
Road.
5 minutes, and then I
Jones's Falls-
drive over it.
Jones's Falls Road from, Highway 15 heading west here, which goes from, anybody familiar with that one?
Yeah.
The counties did like large HL2 patches. It was a terrible road, and they lasted for probably 12 years. Or they actually went back and redid something. Channel 46, south of 27 in Lynn. In 2009, there was like massive holes, and they literally filled them in with full patch and then HL2 over it, and it's still like that.
There was a section actually on the second concession road, as you, approaching from the east to the four-way stop. There was a section that had come delaminated for whatever reason, and we did, I think we contracted that out, but we just did a sectional fix of that road. So that's the type of thing that I'm talking about is isolated. And by the way, and you may be thinking patching in terms of cold patch rather than an actual hot box patch that is a bit more durable.
Yeah, but yeah, that's me too. That's, we have to try and, I guess the terminology is the same, patching and patching, but it's not. It's a taxpayers or a contractor will come with an actual paver and pay a patch over it, and that covers it. I mean, how else?
Yep.
Yeah, see, also when you're padding these roads too, you gotta basically walk ahead of the paver, because you might wanna pull a pad from the center line to the edge, or you might just wanna go half a lane and pull it from the half a lane to the edge. Like, I don't know if you're thinking of a grader or a paver.
Either or.
Either or,
Yeah,
okay.
you can do both
So,
ways.
you actually gotta, you can't drive a road, you actually gotta walk that road and mark it, put a mark here, a mark there, half here, half there, pad it all over the place. But like you were saying, maybe just do that, asphalt one year, then, well, it's just gonna continue on down the road. So, I think the best way for what we're talking about is, doing the padding, then doing the micro on top of that in the same year. You know, but we gotta walk the whole road.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unless anybody has a final question, I think we should, some of these fine folks that come from a distance and need to get back out of the weather. So again, our sincere appreciation on behalf of all of council for bringing so many resources to help walk us through this and educate us. I'm sure there's going to be a question we didn't ask, but that's fine in order to get hold of you. Really appreciate that you're willing to come back when we do our road tour and be a resource. Then again, very, very nice to have you. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All righty.
I didn't know this. I didn't get something
that I want here. Here. So we are down to public question period. I don't believe we have received any of the last time we were able to check.
Ask the public there, did you have a question?
Yeah, and so, in person, any questions to the public gallery?
Not a question, I just support Earl's suggestion that the other local resident be included in the road tour, because he and his family might have built many of these roads.
Yes.
So, I think it'd be a very valuable, addition.
Yeah, understood. All right, so that brings us to adjournment. Thank you very much, Councilor Grayson, for moving the special meeting of council adjourned at 1:35 p.m. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you.
There,
Yes, thank you.